So our next speaker is Josiah Tualamali'i, and I met him when I was doing a piece of work with PYLAT. So over to you, Josiah.
Oh, better make sure I turn that off. I'll turn it on, I should say. E te atua no te korore te mana whenua tēnei rohi tēnā koe o mate ki tonga mate. Haere, haere, haere ho. Onga ora, ki tātou tonga ora. Ko vai te maunga, ko wali ma te awa, ko Aotearoa whiti whāwhiti toko waka, mo te poti ahau, ke o whai no ana, ko Josiah tawiti tōtu ngoa. So, thanks for joining us. Isn't it fun to knock off the last hour of work and do some real work with some lovely people? So it's nice to see you with us. I'm gonna share my screen to show you some people that I love, and I know I'm amongst a group who will have the same sort of love for these people, but in your own maybe not the exact same people. When and if this is going to work. Basically, yeah, here we are. This is my family, and this is what motivates everything I do, and what grounds who I am and how I began and where I come from. And yeah, for those of you who might recognise this out in New Brighton quite a couple of years ago, but that's my dad there in the back. Also, he moved from Samoa to New Zealand in '87 and ended up in Dunedin making taps for Methven Taps. So if any of you have got a Methven tap at home, good chance that Dad and his team back then might have helped put that there. So yeah, so that's what Dad was doing back then. And along the way, he met Mum, and Mum was born in Dumbleyung, Western Australia, and the two of them had us, so the four of us. And yeah, so I guess the reason I want to tell you a little bit about that before I tell you a little bit about myself is in Samoan culture and in our Pacific communities, just like with our whānau, our cousins here, iwi whānau hapu, it's the same. We're the product of our leadership of our families, and that's what my parents have shown me, and what I was trying to allude to at the start with us all. Those are our first teachers and our first the way we begin to see. So Mum's a nurse, and like many of you who have been out in a different response lately, she just knows what to do. The empathy of how to hold someone safe, acknowledging all of who they are, and that's kind of where, with Mum and Dad doing what they did and the way they worked, so that the four of us could have what we have. That's what's made the difference. I think if I go back to three experiences that changed my leadership, first one is when I was 14, and that was when I got to be part of the PYLAT program that Erica was talking about. But the reason that was so important was, until that point, I had very little to do with my Samoan heritage. And so for Pacific young people in New Zealand, belongingness, as many of you may know, is probably the largest challenge that they face, and we face because of the sense of disconnection maybe, or the uncertainty about who we are and where we come from, that we might not speak our language, and we might not have the marks of our identity. And so how can we possibly lead, because we're not comfortable in all of who we are? Or maybe we're leading from a particular set of skills rather than the suite of what our birthright is. And so the thing that stood out for me in that moment was Mum, who we think might be Māori, but we can't find the whakapapa, and that's through Mum's side. But she just supported. She knew inherently what to say. Dad didn't know what to say at that time when I was 14 about those opportunities that would help me grow comfortable, confident, and develop my space to learn about who I was. But Mum just said, "I love you, and I support you," and showed me that she'd pick me up, drop me off, she'd talk to me about these things even if she didn't understand it. Was very careful about how to show love to something which was not in her world experience. I mean, Mum went to a school where there were very few Māori, let alone Pacific people, and like many of us here, so there's that sometimes that it's out of our world. But she just was quietly tiptoeing with us and giving us the space. So that was the first thing. The second thing was where our community leaders had culturally opened the space that it was safe for us to have a voice. So for Pacific young people, it's quite atypical. You go around other parts of New Zealand and you won't have the same level of participation as opposed to us here. And so the leadership that we've developed is because our community said we want them to have a voice, and in a way that's quite meaningful. And that was quite hard, like at the beginning. Like some of our elders, their views on what a young person was, like one of our matua, their view was that you're youth till you die, and another matua's view was that you're youth till you're married. And so, you know, but you've got those two views plus us, and we sort of, you know, at the 24 you sort of move along. That's those cultural worldviews that impact on leadership and who leads and when someone leads. That was an important part of me kind of beginning to think, you know, how we need to share our voice together. So there's 8.1% of our New Zealand population are Pacific, 3.5% in Canterbury. We can have our differences, and we should, but actually we're strongest, and we have our most, we get the outcomes our community needs, and we're able to speak and with one voice. And that's often what our matua do, and our villagers back home are speaking on our behalf. And so that's been something interesting around leadership. How democratic is our systems, unlike in the village where you whakapapa as the leader. So the third thing that sort of that around the leadership journey was around intergenerational decision making. It was sort of, it ended up being that from, you know, us becoming comfortable in who we were, being brought into the conversation, and then us making space for us all to share what needed to be shared when it should be, and then leaving space or sometimes just completely trusting things to happen, like PYLAT and the stuff we've been able to do since, like we run the Pacific Youth Parliament, we have a discussion for North of Pacific Youth to speak into decision making. We're consistently the only policy think thought pieces that go to government and decision makers on what Pacific young people think. And so as the Pacific nerds, we are trusted to do that, and we don't have that kind of check and balance that we have to go back to our leaders to do that. And so I guess what the third thing I was saying is knowing when mastery is getting closer to being achieved. Not that mastery is an endpoint, but that we can trust that culturally they have the heart, the values, and things are safe. And so basically it seemed like this slide here, this is the test. They had the 3 po in the Samoan context of the whaletele, which are built and don't have any nails, and they're completely made where there's every single person in the family is involved. This is the intergenerational decision making. I guess our leadership structures mostly start from a point of discrimination. Like this here has everyone in the whānau was involved in building it. No part was left behind. And yeah, it's a special model too, because it's made by Pauline Lord Simpson from Canterbury Uni. So this is a local Christchurch model. And so I suppose, and then if we look at, you know, like what Pacific young people have said will make a difference, this is it here. It's not just inclusion and acceptance, it's like radical acceptance and absolute inclusion. But I'll leave those slides for you to have a look at another time. I just wanted to finish by telling you about one quick Samoan leader who I think this week in Samoan Language Week is really important to remember, and that's Tualamali'i. So she took a case against the New Zealand government in 84 to say that she was a New Zealand citizen because Samoa had been under New Zealand's administration since the end of World War I. And as a 34-year-old, she won that case, and overnight 100,000 Samoans were made New Zealand citizens because they always were New Zealand citizens. And I just wanted to, and even though the New Zealand government later decided that they would make a law to change that, what she did at the community, taking it to the highest decision-making body, speaking on behalf of our community, is sort of what inspires us and what fuels our, we might not call it leadership, we probably call it more tautua, but the pathway to service, and that might lead to leadership. But people like PYLAT on weeks like this are the ones who inspire us. So yeah, thanks everyone. That's what I was hoping to share with you.